Hello and welcome to this information session about the MSc Psychology by distance learning. My name is Dr. Torben Schulz and I am the Program Director. In this recording I will tell you a little bit more about the course itself, what you can do with it when you finish it, and why you should consider studying with us. Now, first of all, who is this course for? The entry requirements are quite broad, but the whole idea of the course is really to make a psychology education available for as many people as possible. We expect you to have a second-class honors degree, and in most cases that means you have done a degree that is not within psychology or has not been accredited. A second requirement is that you have to have a certain level of English proficiency to be able to follow the curriculum. The people we get on the course, many of them have as a goal to pursue a career in psychology. They might have a different career now and want to change careers, or are still at the beginning of their career. However, we also get quite a few people who just want to learn more about psychology and apply knowledge of psychology in their current work or in their life, or some people who also just have a broad interest in psychology and want to learn more. The aims of the course are twofold. Main aim is obviously to increase the knowledge of the mind and behavior. Those are the main subjects of psychology, really. A second aim is though also particularly aimed at developing a professional career in psychology, should you wish to. And that means that you will develop a lot of transferable skills. Things like psychological literacy. So think about finding appropriate literature, critiquing it and summarizing it and extracting relevant information from it that you can evaluate and then apply, for example, in a given scenario. Critical thinking, that is also involved in this. Which side of the argument is correct? Which evidence is better? Problem solving. So think about, for example, your own research project and your dissertation. How will you find those participants? How will you contact them? Project management. Also, again, mostly probably related to your dissertation project. How will you come up with a good idea for a research project? How will you carry it out? How will you write it up? How will you divide your time to actually get this done? Communication skills. There will be lots of written and verbal assignments, presentations, written assignments that hone your communication skills as a psychologist. We have a teamwork assignment where you have to work together with others to get a project done. Again, teaching you group working skills. And beyond that, there are the obvious data handling, analysis and research skills involved that you learn to analyze, for example, qualitative data, so text data, let's say interviews or focus groups with people, and quantitative data, so numbers. These are all very important transferable skills in psychology itself, but I hope you can also see from this list that these are highly sought after skills in many different other professions and will be useful regardless of whether you aim to have a career in psychology itself or would just like to further your current career. In terms of the structure, the course is made up of 8 taught modules, each 15 credits, and a 60 credit dissertation at the end, as you can see here in the diagram. The course is 2 years part-time, and you study the modules consecutively, which means that we only release one module at a time. You finish the module and then you move on to the next one. Many of the areas that we're covering are areas that are considered core areas according to the British Psychological Society. So if you look at here, for example, investigating psychology covers research methods, brain and behavior is about biological psychology, exploring mental processes, cognitive psychology, individual differences, same name, applied human behavior is social psychology, lifespan development, covers mostly developmental psychology. We have also built up this course in a way to introduce people who are new to the psychology in a logical fashion to it. So we're starting off with historical and conceptual themes, where you will get a broad overview of the history and development of psychology and its conception as a science. Then we move on to research methods in the second module, where you will learn how to analyze and write up qualitative and quantitative data. And as you can see here, these are kind of overarching themes, because many of the debates we will cover in the first module, also for example ethics, professional and research ethics, will come back in many of the other modules, and the same goes for the research methods. So these are kind of threads that run through the program. From that point forward, starting with the brain and behavior module, we start from the micro level and move over to bigger and bigger levels. So brain and behavior focuses, as the name says, on different brain functions and how they relate to behavior, structures and functions of the brain. Exploring mental processes then focuses on cognitive psychology, so things like perception, decision making. In individual differences, we look at things like intelligence and personality, different aspects of personality that make a difference between people, and things in which people can differ, hence individual differences. Applied human behavior then looks at a bigger level, how people behave in groups and what we have learned about that in psychology. Lifespan development then brings many of these aspects together and adds also a time perspective, where we will look at development across time, from conception all the way to death. And then finally, the last taught module is professional psychology, where we will introduce you to the different branches and areas of practitioner psychologists, so you can then plan your next steps after your dissertation if you want to continue a career in psychology. In terms of skills development and assessment, that runs alongside the content in a way. We very much scaffold the skills. We start with individual skills, things like literature search, writing a literature review. These are skills that, again, come back throughout the program. In the second part here, you can see the slightly darker shaded areas starting from exploring mental processes. We will then have you combine these individual skills into more higher order skills. So you will write, for example, entire research report. As an example, I can say you are writing a literature review in the first module, which is kind of like an introduction to a research report. In the second module, you learn how to write the other 2 chapters of a research report. And then you will put all this together in a complete research report in the fourth module. And we have there in this stage 2 research reports, one qualitative, one quantitative. Again, this is a way for us to prepare you for your own dissertation. And when you come to that point, you have done both, and you will be able to make an informed decision of what kind of dissertation project you want to pursue. The latter part of it, the dark red shaded areas, are then where we will ask you to apply knowledge, your skills to new situations. And that means mostly resolving, for example, a particular problem or a case, and applying this knowledge to address a societal problem. So you can see how we have, in this way, scaffolded the skills development from more individual to more combined and more complex skills. And the assessments, as I just said, run alongside that. So we'll start out a little bit simpler, and then we'll get more complex as you move along in the course. I should say to that also that we don't expect any previous knowledge or skills on the course as such. Any level of knowledge of psychology is very welcome, and we will teach you all the knowledge and all the skills on the course that you need. In terms of delivery, we use a virtual learning environment to host all our materials. It's called Blackboard. And what you can expect is a mix of lecture recordings and learning activities and reading, and sometimes some external sources if we find there's something particularly interesting that relates to the topic. There are at least 2 live sessions per module, which means live discussions, usually on a given topic. And the second live session tends to be a Q&A session about the assessment, where you can ask questions directly to the module lead. The delivery is very much self-paced, so at the start of a module, each module is 7 weeks long, has 7 units of learning materials in there. In week 8 you prepare for your assessments, and at the start of week 9 you then submit your assessments, and then you have the rest of that week off, and then the next module starts. That structure is kept throughout. Your learning is self-paced in the sense that all the learning materials of a module are available at the start of the module, and that also includes the assessment briefs, so you can start working on the assessment right away. So that means, particularly important for our distance learning students, if you have a bit more time at the beginning of a module, you can go ahead and already, for example, do the first 2 or 3 units in a week or 2, so you're ahead of schedule. But similarly, if you're very busy at work at that moment, you can perhaps the first 2 weeks not do quite as much and then catch up later in the module. The only exception to that is assessment deadlines that are not as flexible, usually set on a given date. But for example, if you have been very busy at work, or if anything has happened that affected your ability to study or to complete your assessments, you can apply for mitigating circumstances and get extensions to deadlines. Beyond that, we also have an annual hybrid course conference, which is optional. You don't have to attend it, but it's a nice way if you come to lecture to Leicester, to the campus. You can meet staff and other students in person, but as I said, you can also attend online. We invite quite a lot of external speakers, and there's a lot of information that is very relevant to the course. So we would generally urge people to attend, and if you cannot attend in person, then at least attend online. Beyond that, I think we're giving a lot of support, us from the course itself and from the wider university as well, to help students succeed. There's obviously the direct support from the teaching team. If you have any questions about the assessments, about the learning materials, you can always turn to them. Each student is allocated a personal tutor who will check in with you every month, send you an email, and also offer you the opportunity to have meetings with them 4 times a year, where you can discuss your, for example, academic development, certain things you struggle with or where you want to improve. And beyond that, there's also our very dedicated administration team in case you have any problems, for example, uploading assignments or things like this, and they also deal with mitigating circumstances requests. Very special for our course, I believe, is that we also have a mentoring system. This is something additional. You don't have to take part in it, but usually our students report to find this very helpful. This is where some of our second-year students volunteer to mentor our first-year students and share their experience. And sometimes it can be very useful to talk to someone who has walked the path that you're walking. Beyond that, then we have also the wider university support services, particularly the Center for Academic Achievement, where you can find lots of resources, for example, to help you with improving your writing or your critical thinking. And also the student support services, where there are lots of resources to help students improve or maintain their well-being, not to get too stressed, but also if the stress becomes too much, where you can even book one-to-one meetings. I should say that both the Center for Academic Achievement and Student Support Services offer these services as well online for our distance learning students. So what can you do with it once you have graduated? Once you have completed, because the course is accredited by the British Psychological Society, it means you are then eligible to apply for GBC, which is Graduate Basis for Chartered Status. In the UK, at least, this is the first step to a career in psychology. And when it comes to careers in psychology, there are 2 broad branches that we differentiate. One is the research teaching branch, which would usually mean you go on to do a PhD and then start, for example, teaching or become involved in research. The other branch is the more applied branch, the practitioner psychologists, as we call them, which would then require you to do further postgraduate study, for example, in forensic psychology, clinical, occupational, counseling, health, sport and exercise psychology. If you follow this link here, you can also find the career map from the British Psychological Society that will give you a much better idea of the different types of careers you can pursue with a psychology degree. And even if you do not intend to have a career in psychology, or not at the moment at least, you can very well use the skills and the knowledge, as I mentioned before, in your current work or in your future work. So that brings me to the point of why you should choose the University of Leicester, and specifically our MSc Psychology. In terms of the university, we have a great reputation both internationally and nationally. You can see some of the rankings here in some of the tables that we occupy, both in the UK and international league tables. Beyond that, we are also among the top 30 university when it comes to, in the UK, when it comes to our research output, which is generally considered to be excellent. More specifically to the course, I mentioned already, we are accredited by the British Psychological Society, which means a certain quality standard is ensured because the BPS come to visit, they check what we do, and they make sure that the curriculum is fit for purpose, which means there is an accrediting body, an outside external body that looks at what we do and makes sure that the quality is appropriate. Beyond that, as I just said, the University of Leicester is a leading teaching and research university in the UK. More specifically, when it comes to the course, we are experts in online learning design. We have been doing this for some 20 plus years, so we know what we do. We have found out the hard way sometimes what things work, what things don't work, and we have used this knowledge and expertise to design a course that works very well for our distance learning students. It's a great community. You have many different ways in which you can interact with fellow students and with staff through online forums, through WhatsApp groups that students usually set up. You can speak to your mentors if you decide to have one. There are monthly course cafe sessions where you can meet with other students and staff online. And we, for example, also have a newsletter where you hear about the latest news from staff and other students. And beyond that, as I just said earlier on, we have very many layers of support. So all our students, I believe, are getting a very good chance to succeed with having all this support in place. So if you are interested now in the course and think about applying, the next best thing is probably for you to visit our website and read a bit more, for example, about the modules. There you will also find some student testimonials and other students telling you what they thought of the course. If you have any more specific questions about the course itself, particularly when it comes to the application, it's probably best you go make an inquiry through the web, through this address that you see there, or by phone, via the phone number that you see there. And this will then put you in touch with our distance learning admissions team who can answer these kinds of questions for you. If, however, you have a question more specifically about the course itself, its content, its delivery, then I would suggest you contact me directly. My email address is there in the screen. So thank you very much for your attention, and I sincerely hope we can welcome you on the course soon.